Our today's guest is Nicole Munoz, and she is from Sweden. She is a biomedical engineer, and she has an experience of 4 years. She is amazing in her field, and she has been working with some of the greatest companies in the world, which we are, as a biomedical engineer, expect to be working with. Companies like Philips, Drager and Nortech she has worked with, and there are some of the best hospitals she has worked with. And let's hear from her what is her take on the biomedical engineering and how she's planning to go ahead and make the advancement in this field. Hi, Nicole, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for the invitation. It's really nice to be in this podcast. I didn't expect this invitation, and I hope I can contribute something good.
Perfect. I really want to thank you so much for taking some time and doing this because it's really important for me as well as some of the audience who are like not that much aware of this field, and I'm like very keen to spread the awareness of biomedical engineering from a couple of months now because I wrote this particular blog about it that during COVID-19 situation, which is still going on in my country as well as in many of the countries, how biomedical engineers are helping, but they are not coming as a frontline heroes. So it is, in a way, it's very important for us to showcase their work and put them in the front line and appreciate the kind of work and the kind of contribution they are making in the field.
Yes, I saw your article and I thought it was really good written, so that's why I shared it at LinkedIn. So I think you brought up some good points about biomedical engineers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And let's start with the podcast. I am going to ask you a couple of questions and let me know what's your experience so far and what do you think about it?
Well, my experience, I think I couldn't choose another career to work with. I think biomedical is so futuristic job. I think it's going to be bigger and bigger, and it's developing very fast. And I think already we're going to have it integrated in our lives. And somehow, I mean, you're going to have some medical devices at your home, and they are going to be more advanced in the future. And I think it's very beautiful to see how you can help people with the technology and how you can develop some other innovations. So I think it's fantastic to see example how the anesthesia devices have been developing during the time from 1800s, from using only anesthesia gas to have devices that can control many other things for you as a doctor or a nurse.
Right. So I want to take you back when you were pursuing biomedical engineering back in university. So you have studied your biomedical engineering from Swedish Royal Institute of Technology. That was, I think, 3 years of course. So how was your experience with the university? Because in India, many of the universities does not have the fulfilled the possibility of providing the instrumentation on the premises of university itself. And students here may think about that, we should be having a privilege to have the instruments in the university, but somehow we don't have because maybe the institutes are not that much well funded, or maybe XYZ the problem is, but not every university is having all kind of instruments. So what was your experience? Because here we are having the full theoretical based approach for teaching biomedical engineering. So how is the situation there in the Sweden?
In Sweden, I think the the program are formed as to go to really basic courses that take you to the very details to know how to manage the temperature, or how you can get the feedback, and how to regulate examples of the pressure or the temperature, or the volume of of the things that the patient needs. And I think it's when you're doing the program at the college, you don't see how it's going to help you in the future at the work. And of course, some of it I still haven't used it, and but in other ways, like how the regulation with the standards have helped me a lot. And that, I think it's very important to know the standards that you have to follow to increase the quality of your work. And I think also the practical work, I think it's good if you get your hands on the devices and open it and try to get it together, and just take out all the components and see what they do. And I think the responsible is on the students. What interest they have? And of course, some of them, they can take the initiative to do it, but it's something you have to learn with the time.
So I think, Nicole, which you said about the having a trial and error back in college is extremely important, because you understand I think the basic principles, because the laser technology, or maybe how the pulse oximeter work, or maybe how the particle is going to be calculated, or the blood pressure measurements, how these points are actually working in real life. It is not only on paper, but you also wants to know that how these things actually work in a practical manner. So doing an experimental work, that trial and error, or maybe some kind of research and developments, is extremely necessary as a student. So I think you actually made a good point on that part. And coming back to the internship point which you were saying, please continue with that.
As I said, I think it's very important with the internships at different hospitals or different companies. But you have to understand that medical devices are so wide. You go from oximeters that are very simple to like big X-rays that are more complicated to work with. So I think you have to know what you're doing, and I don't think it requires too much knowledge to work with small devices as temperature sensors or oximeters or blood pressure meters. But I think it requires bigger knowledge to work with bigger devices, and then it even requires more quality and more how you work with it carefully,
Yeah, that's
because
perfectly true.
because it's very critical, and you can put a person's life in danger if you don't do it right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So yeah, I think that's definitely correct, because if we talk about two different yet important part of medical industry, is one is the X-ray, and the other one is how we calculate the oxygen level in the body, is the pulse oximeter. So I think, as far as I see the daily life of people, or maybe the doctors, they have to take the X-rays very, very often. And at the same time, the pulse oximeter is also being used very frequently whenever someone is hospitalized or something. Maybe even during the COVID, one of the major symptom it was the oxygen level inside of the human body. So to calculate, to understand what is the level of human oxygen level is through pulse oximeter we measure. So both the devices are important, yet work on extremely different principles, because one is working on the laser scattering and the cells counting, where the other one is working on the full tungsten and how the properties of the tungsten is working and the rolling and the RPM level, and everything is different because there is a huge, like, high amount of heat transfer is there inside of the X-ray machine, and you need to understand what level of the temperature should be, what kind of
Exactly.
bombarding has to be there. So understanding the phenomena, the principle of all the devices extremely necessary to work in the actual environment as a biomedical engineering, be it a hospital, be it the private companies, private organization, doesn't matter. But the ultimate meaning of understanding the principle is extremely necessary. That was a well said point.
Yeah, and also you work different as a medical engineer at the hospital and as a service engineer at a big company, because from a big company you have to go from the standards as a producer, and you have to follow stricter rules and
Right.
see that they are calibrated at the right way to show the right outputs, and they and as a biomedical engineer at the hospital, you see it more as from a customer side, and you put the requires like from the producer,
Yeah, yeah,
and you have to do your work from that side too, to see that the producer are delivering the right product
right. The
with no
perspective is
fails.
extremely different. One is the user, where the another is the
Yes, it is.
manufacturer.
It is. And
The
so
perspective is different.
it gives you, I think it's good to start working from a hospital,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because you see what you have to follow as a
Right.
producer later if you go over to a company. And I think you learn how the users as nurses and doctors see the devices too,
Mm-hmm.
because normally if something that doesn't work as it should, they come to you and say it doesn't work,
Right.
and then you have to communicate with them
Right.
as in a different way. You can't
Right.
talk in technicians words like sensors and stuff like that. So you have to ask them what isn't working, what isn't showing, what are you looking for in the devices.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very different to work at the hospital and as an engineer at a company.
Right. If you are at the manufacturing site, if you are a field service engineer, you will be having multiple models of the same device. If it is anesthesia, you will be having multiple models of it. If you have infusion pump, you will be having different models of it. But at the same time, you do not have like whole range of anesthesia machine, infusion pump, patient monitoring system, and etc. Whatever the kind of range hospital serves, because they have to have all these instruments at the same time for maybe single patient or maybe multiple patients. But the exposure you get, you can explore the range of instruments at the hospital if you are the beginner. So you understand that, this kind of basic necessity, basic instrument necessity is there. Hospital needs it like every day, every now and then. So you can choose for maybe later period that what your interest is. You cannot directly jump and work with the anesthesia machine. You need to understand the usability of it first. So I think it is best way to approach a hospital initially rather than jumping towards the field service engineer.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest, I think I can go from my experience from when I was a student. I thought when I was going out to the work field, the people was going to expect that I could everything, that I just go jump into the devices and do everything perfectly. But and it's not like that, because when you go out, you don't know where to start, how things works, what kind of routines do they have in the different companies. And that's why the big companies have also internal trainings, so you learn about the devices you're going to work with, because you have to know the constructions, how it's structured, and how you have to change the things, what's the normal fails it can become when you're using it many times. And the most important things from the hospital side is that they have to do the preventive maintenance. It's very important to do it, because if you do the preventive maintenance, you can see more if the devices need to change some of the components or parts. So it's really big, and I think you have to see that no one expects that you should know everything. You should just see and learn how things works out at the field.
That's very true, actually. And I think the point which you said about that students have the imagination during the college, and what they actually get while they are working in the field is extremely different, because back in college, where we are pursuing biomedical engineering, is whole different scenario, because we expect that, I'll be working with Drager or Philips or any kind of, largest companies out there. But you don't really get to understand maybe the basics while you are working there, because you need to have certain level of experience to work at the manufacturing site, because they expect you to do couple of type of works. And while you are in a hospital or a small organization, you have that privilege to take the assistance of different kind of companies, because in hospital, you have this AMC, CMC contracts done with the manufacturer, and you can rely on them and ask them to maybe teach you, maybe assist you in repairing particular defects which you might have while you are working in a hospital. And I think major part what I really want to focus on is that students who are pursuing biomedical engineering should take some kind of internship while they are pursuing the graduation degree.
I agree with you totally. I started working before I graduated, and it helped me so much working beside the studies, and it gives me another way, another perspective, how to put the knowledge in the studies too. And it helped me to understand what the teacher wanted to learn me, not to
Right,
teach me.
right. And like, since you are working in Drager, I really
Yeah.
want to make a point that dealing with anesthesia machine is not at all easy.
Thank you. Well, it's not easy. It's taken me a year to understand somehow how it works, and I don't want to say that I'm an expert yet, because you have still so much to learn about the device. The anesthesia devices are so complicated, and they are so um, they are constructed by different modules, the gas module, the power supply module. So, and in these modules, you have very complicated and advanced technology that you have to understand how it works. But the only way you understand it is by working with the machine. You have to open it and see where goes the flow, where goes the temperature, and where goes the gas, and what is regulating the gas example, and how works the ventilation. So the best advice I can say to students is that to get the hands on all devices to see how it works. So and of course, and they get this experience by doing the internships on hospitals and big companies. And I think the big companies, they like students that are interested, because the big companies are not going to look for you. You have to show your interest. Are you interested? You're going to get so many opportunities to grow as a person, as an engineer.
Right. That's really true. Question which I wanted to ask is, like, I'm really curious because you have worked upon the mobile ventilators. So how was your experience during the pandemic, which is like in India still today we got the number of 90,000 patients in a single day, which is extremely huge, because there are so many countries who are even calculating total number of patients, total number of cases in a entire year. They don't have 90,000, where we are getting single day spike is 90,000. So at the same time, the requirement of ventilator is getting really high. So how was your experience to be working on such critical instruments during this pandemic?
It's been hard. It goes up and down. Sometimes it has been so. At the beginning, it was really calm. People were so scared; they didn't know how to act. I mean, they stopped receiving us because they didn't know, as a person, not as an engineer, if I would bring the virus. They didn't know. So, and the preventive maintenance is so important to do at the big
I
devices
think
as anesthesia.
maintenance can be secondary, but if in case the failure is, then a person has to go and
Yes,
repair that, because it is like extremely necessity during such
yes,
time.
of course,
Yeah.
and that prevents that the bigger issues becomes later, and of course it was very calm. The people that works administrative, they stayed at home, working from home,
Mhm.
and we as field service engineers, we were at the office waiting for go and do interventions. So um, we were on the edge all the time, and then we got the call, and then we work very hard at hospitals and doing preventive maintenance on very old machines to have them as a backup if the current machines didn't work, or they had to bring in all the machines to other patients, because they had to count it, that there were going to be a lot of more patients than regular.
Mhm.
So then we had to work hard in periods.
Right, right.
So and and then during the summer, well, Sweden have been different than other countries by how they've been putting the rules for this pandemic. We haven't done a close down like the other countries, like Spain or Italy.
Mhm.
We have put responsible to the Swedish people that they should know that they should keep the distance and keep the hands clean and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And other other countries have been criticizing because people don't follow these rules. So as an engineer, it's been tough because we have new rules. We have to take in our devices and clean them and put them in quarantine. And then the question is how long they should be in the quarantine. How should we handle the devices? And I think it's difficult, and sometimes we have to put the question to higher level to see if they get contaminated in different ways, and if there's parts that we have to change as soon as we are going to do repairs. But at the end, you have to follow the company's rules, what they have for routines. And I think the service field engineers are a big part of the hospitals, as like the doctors and nurses, even if they come from our company. And the biomedical engineers from the hospitals, we have been we are working together. They have done some repairs for us, and we have sent the parts. It's
So
really
I think, that
important
way
with the communication.
right. That way we can reduce that the travel, or maybe the possibility of carrying the virus as a human body. So I think that will be much helpful if we can. And like, talking about the part, that if in case the doctor or the nurses can replace the particular part, if it's very easy procedure to do, it will make so much easier for us to make them understand, that this way the instrument is actually working, and this could be the
Yeah.
problem. So I think the initial level of training of the hospital staff for that particular type of instrument is extremely necessary, and in that way this is playing a vital role for such kind of situation, where they are being a person who is they are being a like key person for changing and replacing the issue which we are facing. The smallest issue can be the largest problem, but at the same time they are willing to change it because they know the instrument so much better than the other people who are working in a hospital.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that the biomedical engineers from the hospitals have a good communication with the manufacturers to
True.
see what they can do, the products can do, or if they can get contaminated or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think also that it's been, you have to understand, it's a very unique time of the history, and we don't know how to act. Even
Right.
if we are very advanced, nobody knows what's right, what's wrong in this time. And I think it's as a biomedical engineer, you have to have precaution, like how you handle the medical devices. Ask them at the hospital if they have done a cleaning of the devices, if they had disinfected the devices, so you can start doing your work. But those are rules or routines that you get from the companies, and it's very important to follow them.
That's very, very true actually. And I think we really concluded what we are trying to say, and it is extremely important to be a biomedical engineer and serving in a hospital, or as a field service engineer, because we are trying to help, or we are trying to repair such important parts, such important instruments which we are going to apply, even if from our family member, or even if myself is ill. This will be the basic necessity, because doctors now are extremely dependent on all the kind of instruments which we have as an advancement of the medical industry. So biomedical engineer is actually very important for hospitals in general.
Yes, yes, and during this time, the anesthesia devices have been to test because they have a ventilation function. So when they didn't have enough ventilations devices, so they used the anesthesia devices. So we have been following the progress of different anesthesia devices that put it in a test that have been going on with ventilating patients during every day, several weeks, and then we have a good communication with the doctors and nurses that use the devices, and then they have sent us the logs and everything, so we can see how the devices have been acting and what have been what parts of the device have been used so much that we have to change more often. So it's been interesting from that part too, see what innovations they have come and how other devices that have a purpose that have been used for another purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. It does make sense, and I personally didn't know that there is a small part of ventilating in the anesthesia machine, which can be useful in such a time where the demand of the particular type of instrument is so high that we might go out of stock, or we don't have that much of resources to make that devices in a larger quantity. So at the same time, if you are having another instrument which can play the same role as the another one which is in demand, so it becomes easier for doctors to use that particular instrument and get the result whatever we expect. So I think you are making a lot of sense in that manner. um, Lastly, I wanted to talk about your podcast, which is
Yeah.
MTPODDEN, right?
Yes, yes, it's right.
Right.
I'm doing a podcast with two other colleagues, ex-colleagues
Uh-huh.
from Nortech, and now we are friends, and we have this podcast that we talk about biomedical engineering and the technology,
Okay.
and the purpose is to educate and share the experience from other engineers and things we want to lift up in Sweden, and how we work with the technology
Right.
and how the different devices works, how the history have been, and the clinical using, so we can understand more from our customers, from the doctors and nurses that are really using the devices.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to know about more in what terms we have to talk with them, and how they see the devices, so we can learn more and do more efficient repairs or interventions.
Right.
So
That's
we
interesting.
do interviews. Oh, sorry. What did you say?
Oh, that's interesting. As I was saying, I wanted to know what is the meaning. Like, I'm pretty sure there should be some meaning in the name of your podcast, MTL Pod Den. What is the full form? I mean, what's the detailing?
MT is the short name for biomedical. In Swedish, it's medicinsk teknik.
Okay.
It's like medical technology if you
Mm-hmm.
do right over translate. So, but so we call it MT, and then in Swedish, podden is like a short name for podcast. So
Oh,
that's
I
why
see.
it's called MTPODDEN.
Medical technology podcast.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes,
Perfect.
and we do interviews with different people that have a lot of knowledge of different things in the biomedical
Field. Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. A huge shout out to your show, and I'm pretty sure that your show will be sharing a lot of knowledge, and the people will be like thoroughly, people will definitely enjoy your show, and they will be having a lot of information out of it. So I'm all the very best for the show, and I hope that whatever you are expecting, you get that from the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Unfortunately, it's in Swedish, so I don't know if many people outside of Sweden can understand
But
it.
for even if it is for maybe the smaller audience, they will understand it because it is in local language, so it will be much beneficial for them. So it doesn't matter.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yes, yes, yes. Thank
that's
you.
great. um, one more question is, how was your experience working with Drager like so far? You have been working with them from 1.5 years, I think.
Yeah, I have been working with them a year now,
Mhm.
and I love it. I've been learning so much, and they let me to grow as an engineer and as a person. They let me to try the things I want to, like if I'm interested about the quality standards, they led me to get involved more in those questions, and it was really nice experience to go to their headquarters in Germany, in Lübeck, and I met so many nice people and very intelligent and with a lot of knowledge about what they do, and they are so glad to share the knowledge and their expertise and show you how to work with their devices. And they are eager to share their history and show what they do for the people, for the patients in the world. So I really love to work with Drager. I think it's really nice company. So, and I have a really nice service team too. My colleagues, we are nine engineers that we work in whole Sweden in Nordic. So it's really nice to collaborate with them and work together and go to different cities and to different hospitals to do maintenance.
Right, right. That's amazing. I'm sure it will be really fun to work with such a company who are like having such a quite a good range of instruments, be it anesthesia, incubators, or ventilators. They have huge range of instruments, and they have quite a lot of models. In talking about only incubators, they have almost 15 to 17 types of incubators for the neonatal. So that's amazing, and I'm sure it will be make a huge impact on your total experience. So that's amazing to be working with Drager. Amazing.
Yes, I've been learning so much about the anesthesia devices and all the things around the anesthesia devices, how the hospital people works with it. So I think I have still so much to learn from Drager. I really think it's a really good workplace, and they love to receive people that want to practice or to work, or students that want to learn more. They receive them. So
That's great. Amazing.
thank you for having me in your podcast.
Yes.
It was really nice to be here.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's my pleasure actually to have you on this show, and sharing your experience and the kind of work you have done so far is very, very helpful for the industry and for the students who are like, working or aspiring to be biomedical engineers. So thank you so much for coming on this show.
Thank you.